Hi, Metisse.
Hello.
All right, so we have my beloved with us today, and we're going to be speaking into divine masculine presence and exploring what that actually means. So, Matisse, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about this energy and anything you want to share?
Hmm. Well, it's a tricky one to share about because it just is, and tuning into it comes from the silence, comes from sensitizing to the moment, to coming into the stillness, to naturally the sort of the witness of form, and to really allow life and Shakti and feminine energy and all of it to actually be received and just to witness in presence life and to be able to actually take that in. And there's so many levels to that witness and to that presence and really being in the moment. And it's
Mm.
hard to really share that other than being in it. And you can only point towards it, really.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, so maybe a good place to start. I'm obviously your partner and live with you and feel the depth of your presence and have experienced firsthand what naturally transpires in the life of someone who holds that level of presence. So, can you just share with people from that space of stillness, from that space of witness, from being fully present and not caught up in the future and where you have to go and what you have to do and outcomes and achievement, like so much of the population, and also not being stuck in the past or rehashing the past. And yeah, 95% of the time you are completely in the here and now. So, can you tell everyone a little bit about how life naturally has unfolded for you from being in that state? And have you always felt that, or was there a time in your life that catalyzed a deeper presence within you? You know, how have you got to that place of such deep presence within you, do you feel? And what has transpired naturally as a result of that?
well, I'd say a big turning point was when I was 18 and I was able to witness myself receive my ultimate external thing that I desired. Could have been anything, like it was my ultimate physical desire from life. Could have been a house, could have been a car, but in that point in time, it was a laptop. And I wanted a MacBook, and everything. It was all that was like my ultimate desire, really. At that time, it was like I got to have the laptop, and then I'm gonna have. There's going to be so many more possibilities once I have a laptop, and I
And you were
got
studying at the
I was
time?
starting university, and my parents gifted me a laptop to celebrate me starting uni, and I was able to witness somehow that my happiness spiked for about a week or two. I could notice that I was excited, and I'd go to my laptop and I'd do my things, and it lasted maybe a week or two, and then kind of just fell back to where I'd always been before getting the laptop. And it was so obvious to me because I'd had so much sort of focus on getting this thing that I just was able to see. It was like this light bulb turned on. Like, holy shit, that could have been, in the future, getting the house or getting the most amazing car or even a woman or anything really. And um, that I would have desired something so much and then received it. And there's probably going to be the same spike. So it just hit me. I was like, well, nothing external is going to make me happy or content or at peace. And I just was able to, I just knew that somehow through that experience. And
Mm.
so then I started to look inwards, and that was really the turning point. So then it was just an exploration from that point onwards. I was in uni for a year, and then um, realized that I couldn't be making decisions about the rest of my life at that point. I didn't really know myself, didn't really know who I was. That experience at the beginning of that year had just rippled into all different things, all different ways. And yeah, it started a whole journey, dropping out of uni, going to India to find myself before I even really knew what that was. But I was like, I need to know who I am before I make decisions about like what I'm even going to study, because I got to the point where I had to choose my major. And I was like, before I can make decisions about the rest of my life, I need to know who I really am. And I heard that people go to India to find themselves. So then that started the journey of spirituality and looking inwards. And then
Osho's ashram is where you ended up.
Osho's ashram in Pune, in the mountains as well. And it was just a real exploration of my inner world, and then also just sensitizing to the simplicity and like receiving so much from the little things, more than the experience with the laptop, my ultimate desire. Like when I'm finding deep moments of presence, we're actually released into in the mountains and just seeing nature and feeling the wind and like feeling these sensitivities, that they're actually just as potent as the ultimate external experience or the ultimate external sort of validation or achievement. That actually, when you're truly present to life, there's so much nourishment that's available there, and that it actually trumps any of the major thing. Like trumps, I don't know about trumps. It's like it's all one thing, but it's like for me, it was more interesting the present and the flow of life, and really sensitizing to life and to the simplicity. And I realized that there was so much nourishment there for me. So that became my focus. And I never really, I never felt called to get really focused on a projects or like establish myself really in any way. I just wanted to move with life and be totally free.
And what did that look like? Can you share with people your life from that point on, which I know a lot about, but just giving some people an idea of how you lived your life from that moment of coming into that deeper stillness and realizing that nothing external is going to bring you happiness, and not striving like a lot of us do, or trying to get to some destination, but just being in the flow of beautiful places and experimenting with different things and adrenaline sports and surrendering, really.
Just a constant exploration of like what's true in this moment for me, and following the guidance and from the sensitivity of my being and tuning into myself, and then also becoming hypersensitive to life and like looking at all the signs and where is life encouraging me to go. And so it was a constant interaction with me and life and my being. And that just led me on a journey overseas and back to my hometown, and just like constantly, a lot of the time was spent in the unknown of like what I'm going to do today. Like I've never really had a calendar. I've never had plans. Really, I've had a few, but like not really like not many plans, and I've never really had anything in a calendar that's set. Like occasionally I've booked things, and this is in the past. Like there's more of that lately, but um, actually just like
Inspired more planning.
navigating the moment from presence and kind of surrendering my mind and what I think is the right thing to what I was receiving from the moment telling me the right thing and how that interacted with the feeling in my body. So there was this constant interaction and guidance of like, all right, there's an opportunity. And there's like a yes, no, maybe, go. And then boom, that way. And there's been many moments that I've had where I feel that pull and that clarity of the direction, and it's freaking scary. It's totally into the unknown. But I've been like living on this like razor edge of like, and that's been in extreme sports, but also just in extreme life, like not having a dollar and like being like, no, but I'm meant to be on this journey, and I don't know how I'm gonna keep putting food in my belly and have any money, but like I feel this is the right situation, or like, and then I go down that path and just trust, because I know that the guidance is true, and I've truly recognized that life has said this is what you should be doing, and I've also felt the resonance in my being. So then, with that, the more I've cultivated that trust and recognized that like the most amazing things that I couldn't have even dreamed of are arise from that place. It's like, yeah, it's more exciting. It's like it's this kind of extreme life where you're living on the edge and you're exploring deep trust and deep presence and understanding, like listening to the environment, listening to your being, and really coming into this kind of flow state. And it's led me to the most incredible places, some of the most incredible experiences. I've had, yeah, just such a rich life through living that way. And through that, cultivated just a seriously deep presence with life through just being in the unknown all the time for years,
Mhm.
years and years and years, and day to day, moment to moment, not having any idea what's happening next. Um,
Mhm.
I chose that life because that was what was the most interesting thing to me, and it didn't didn't create a big business, or it didn't create like a huge amount of savings in my bank or any sort of stability, but it did create a certain cultivation of something unique, and that has translated into now different ways that I can show up in space holding or show up with you, and yeah, it's cultivated something, and the way I can trust in life and listen, and now I'm, you know, exploring something also like more structure, more planning, more long term visions, and getting more like still deeply surrendered, but also having more input into desire and what I would like. Because before I was like, I don't. How could I feel like life knows better than me what I should be like. I'm not going to pretend like I have the answers or that my mind is greater than the divine force of life. Like, I want to surrender to that will, and that's going to be a much more exciting journey than what I can come up with my own mind. And I'm also recognizing that my mind and my own desires are part of that grand life. And I think I like externalize the direction of my life to this outside source, and or sort of, and then consistently interacting with my own being, but like surrendered to the greater will. And I'm recognizing that greater will is also my own will, and it's a dance. So that's coming in more, but it all sort of relates to just presence and that that need to feel what's actually true, and that could be in the surrender. But now I'm recognizing that one and the same, like planning and structure, can also be included in um, that as well. So
Yeah, and yeah, I'd like you to speak more into how you're able to hold that with a family. Like, you live with me and my son, and lived with my daughter as well for a while. And one of the things that never really inspired me about people who were more coming from that space of surrender, trust, flow, presence, was that I felt an element of man child in those men, and inability to, yeah, really be committed and steadfast in holding the people that they love. And when we first started seeing each other, one of my fears was, okay, he is a bit of a gypsy man, and follows the beat of his heart, and maybe he's not capable of really giving me what I need. And of course, I was very clear in what I needed. And I feel like you've been able to hold that stillness and hold that presence. And we'll talk more about, when my emotional fire is up, but for now, just lifestyle. You've been able to hold that even while you're taking care of me and the kids, even while you're, the last 3 years, we've had a lot of trouble, but we've also spent a lot of time at home and doing the things that you need to do to, take care of the home and take care of the people that you love. So I'd love to hear a bit more about, because I don't think enough people are talking about it. How do you hold a place of stillness and presence and hold the mundane at the same time? Because I don't really feel much of a difference in your capacity to be present or your embodiment of that now to when I first met you and you were very free flow. And, meeting your parents and seeing where you grew up in nature and how present they are, I know that it's something deeply instilled in you. I also, from parts of your story that you've shared with me, can feel where you're meeting with death in different journeys you've taken, and adrenaline sports and surrendering with paragliding and rock climbing and all the crazy stuff you've done have contributed to that. And it always does leave me in awe that, I've been with a lot of spiritual teachers and sat with a lot of masters, and yet the presence and stillness that you hold has definitely had the biggest impact on my being in terms of my own embodiment of divine masculine energy. So how do you hold that, even with all of the everything that comes with being with me and my business and my kids and my big Italian family? Like, can you share a bit about that?
Well, that it came with an evolution from what the journey that I'd been on previously. That total free form had been one expression of presence and like surrender and all of that, and like I kind of could say mastered that. Like I'd gotten to the core of adventure and free flow, really, like, and then it was the same thing actually, and that's what I've really learned through this journey, in this relationship, and just in lots of different ways in the last few years, has been they're part of the same thing, and it's just a new adventure that looks different, and that it was still the same guidance into the family and into our relationship. Like it was spirit, life, my inner being, interaction, um, feeling that direction, and just being present with that, and being, when we came together, there was a lot that needed to be trusted and like surrendered to, and like it was a scary time. That was an extreme. Like I was risking like losing my best friend because there was a whole story that there was thing, and I was like had to lose the place I was living, and lots of things had to happen, and I had to step off a cliff into the unknown, and it was and it was that kind of intense jump as well, but it was guided from the same place, and that's been consistent. There's obviously a shift in pace, but that's where the presence is. It's like there's so much nourishment and beauty and experience in every moment, really, and it's just like it was easier to feel and experience when I was always in amazing places and nature and just meeting new people all the time, and just in that really like external adventure, free flow, new things. Like it's like when you're present to new things, it also enhances presence because it's new and you really want to take it in. But the same thing, the same place, the same people, like a lot of the time, it just requires an evolution of presence and like opening to new depths. And through the whole relationship, we've had moments where it's like, is this really true? And then life and my being and us, the interaction between us, it's like, yes, that's the feeling. So it's like, can I trust that? Can I, even if there's younger parts of me or different things that are like, that adventure and stuff seems very nice, and just the free flow and the unknown, and like I love that place. Can I actually, coming from that same idea of getting the laptop, it's like the external isn't the source of contentment, peace, deep nourishment, presence, tuning in with life. Like, it's a exploration that comes from our own being, and there's just as much beauty, just as much life, if not more, in this, the more mundane as well, and the simplicity, and finding more, just really tuning into that simplicity and that, and also the consistent guidance from spirit, from life, that this is where I'm meant to be, and this is the adventure for this time. It's a different kind of adventure, and it's an adventure into family, it's an adventure into consistency, it's an adventure into business, it's an adventure into learning how to plan stuff. And like, it's not my path before isn't the total answer. It was the most interesting thing for me, and it is a very beautiful life for a time, for a stage, and I'm really grateful for that. But it's not the entirety picture of the human experience. Like, it's cool. I want to share myself more, and I want to learn how to show up for a woman and look after a child, and like all these things are like part of a natural part of life as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another adventure. And if it's like taken in like that, and then you just sensitize to that, and it requires that consistent checking in, like, is this where I'm meant to be? And it's like, yes, that is where. So then actually being able to allow that, and yes, I'm here, I can step up more. And like, we've got too many different stages where it's like, there's another level of like commitment. There's another level of like showing up for you and the family. There's another level of like service and offering. There's a calling. And that's the next unknown, the next cliff to step off. Is like, can I do this? Is this right? It's really hard. It's really scary. But the truth of what I've learned about guidance and direction is pointing this direction. So I just got to say yes. So
Yeah, beautiful. And one thing that always leaves me in awe is how that presence supports you to be so accepting of wherever I'm at and the kids are at. Obviously, you're not perfect, and every now and then, especially where my energy is directed at you and I'm not happy with you, it's not always 100% perfect. But other than that small percentage of time when I'm upset with you, what always just like inspires me and leaves me quite in awe is your capacity to be in a state of acceptance from that presence of not needing things to be any different. And I've never seen you get frustrated with Jaleb or raise your voice or get angry. And both my kids love you, my friends love you, because from that presence is this deep acceptance. And I guess that capacity you have not to need things to be different to how they are in the moment, and what I've learned from that is my quick to temper, or my quick to needing things to be different with the kids. I'm so much better with that now from watching you, and I can just stay present with where they're at with so much more ease. But I'd love you to share with our audience, like, how the fuck do you always just hold that present calm, no matter how goofy or wild or upset Jaleb is, or, and of course you two have so many beautiful adventures and amazing times together. But there's also moments where, there is a bit of contraction and it's not always expansive, and yet you show up with that same level of presence with him and with Sadell, no matter what kind of chaos is moving through them. and often for my chaos too and my feelings. So first, for the parents out there, because even though you're not a parent, you've actually taught me more than anyone in my life about how to be a good parent. Can you speak into that, like just being fully present with the kids, especially Caleb because he's younger and living with us? Yeah, without needing him to be different and without getting mad or frustrated with him, just this full permission and presence.
Hmm. Well, I think it starts from a place of peace in your own being. It starts from a deep acceptance of life and yourself, and that when you're really in the moment and you're not trying to wanting it to be other way. I mean, stuff comes up like it's sort of I don't know how to fully answer this because it's
So let's put it in
a big
a real
question.
life,
It's a
let's
big
put it in a real life
question.
context,
How to be
right?
a good parent.
I want to put it in a real life context. So Caleb's unhappy with something. He's goofing around. He's kind of grumpy. He's like all over the place. I used to get frustrated with that. I don't think I do as much anymore because I'm really taking on that transmission from you. But what is it in you that when he's in chaos that you can just remain calm and loving and present? Do you know? Can you put that to words?
I mean, it comes down to trust and peace that you've cultivated, and that's been my whole journey
Mhm.
for 13,
Mhm.
14 years since 18
So
is,
part of being able to be present is trusting what's actually happening and trusting other people's journeys in that.
yeah, it's like if you can see it as just an expression of life in front of you that you're witnessing, whether it's like a bird going crazy or like amazing flower that's naturally expressing itself or like anything has its own expression. And there's always an opportunity to have a moment with life and take it in and see where it meets your being. And things do cause me frustration. Like I do get annoyed internally sometimes, and there might be different ways I need to respond to that. But also just being there and being like, what am I labeling this as wrong? Once you realize that like some of the, and it's such a been a big journey in like cultivation of this. Like that's the thing. But like major points, like when I've been in some of the darkest places of my life and not in a million years, but I wish that on myself or anyone I know. Like, I don't have really any enemies, but like, it's anyone that like a bad person or something, I wouldn't want that for them or anyone. And like, I would never choose that. And I would never dream of directing my life towards that. But I've ended up there through following my truth and following what I felt was right. And it's dark, it's hard, it's fucking intense. And then, I get to a certain place and then boom, the clouds part. And
Mhm.
it's the most beautiful thing ever. And I recognize that, and it's like just so beautiful and like so nourishing and like something that could only have been come through that challenge. So that, and then having that time and time again, but I've had some major ones that have just been like, holy fuck, life is all imperfection. I
Mhm.
just believe that really. Like, even though I have judgments about different things and would like things to be a different way at times, there's also like a really, really deep trust that
Mhm.
everything going on is just part of one greater unfolding, and that I could never really understand what is going on. And my will or desire or ideas, it doesn't, it's not the overall truth. Like,
Mhm.
never have chosen to have those really dark, hard experiences, but not in a million years would I want to change that. And I'm so
Mhm.
grateful for those experiences because they led to something else. And so that
Mhm.
kind of truth and that understanding, when it's truly embodied, it just takes a lot of the judgment out of your experience because you recognize that, like, whatever's going on is just part of some greater thing that's going on. And maybe if it's true for you, you're meant to step in and say, like, hey, man, like, chill out, or can you please speak this way or do something differently when it's actually true. But like, doesn't have to come from a like charged live place. Like, it's just like, that's the true thing to do right now. But also maybe it's to do nothing and just to be at peace. And it doesn't have, even if there's something to do, that doesn't have to come with a judgment or a strong emotion attached to it. And ideally it doesn't, because ideally you look at that emotion that comes with it and you recognize that it's your own and it has nothing to do with them or life. It's just something being triggered in you. And that yeah, there's actually nothing really wrong going on. And
Mhm.
they're whatever he's doing, it's like, that's the sort of, it's that trust and allowing of life to express itself in different ways, and they're not always going to be perfect or what you think is right, but it's how it is. And that
Yeah.
there's a greater beautiful thing going on most of the time, and there's occasionally times to step in as well, but that's like when you're really tuned into the moment and it's calling through from a place of truth, then
Mm.
that's a good way to move from that place.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I'm recalling like how many times, especially at the beginning of our relationship, where I was experiencing some angst with the kids, and you were just like, "It's okay. It's okay that they're experiencing this. It's okay for them to go through with this." And in encouraging that trust and just seeing Jayla blossom through that as I've let go of the clutches of control and let him be fully himself. And yeah, it's so beautiful to have the relationship that I have with him, and I do feel that deep trust now in his journey, in Sadel's journey, and you've really supported that. So thank you, and just letting all the parents out there know that it's actually just made such a huge difference to allow him to find his way with things and not and not have that stress that a lot of us as parents have of like needing it to be different. And your reminding of me to breathe and trust is so powerful. And I also want to say here that, you know, part of that presence as a parent in you is that you do so much fun shit with him because you're not all in your head and you're not planning and you're not, you know, in the achievement. And it's when a child can experience a parent in flow like that, who's prioritizing joy and who's more in that childlike embodiment, which, you know, Nietzsche calls the highest evolution. And I definitely feel the same, that kind of childlike in the moment. Okay, let's do this, let's do that. And of course, if you were only in that, I would find that frustrating, but you also do so much shit for us, right? And you really take action on things. And I feel like that capacity to allow the doing nothing and the presence and the beingness to coexist with actually you are a very motivated person who who does do a lot. And I can feel where the doing arises from the being. And I just want to let people know that you don't have to be afraid that, because I really had this fear, and I've worked with clients who have this fear when I'm now sharing more of this with them. You don't have to be afraid that when you do nothing more often and you get more present, that nothing's going to get done. And no, actually, I'm more inspired than ever. And as I'm coming into slowing down my being and getting more present, and still I find that my action is guided from something deeper and a deeper truth. And I've been creating a bodywork transformation retreat that's going with our practitioner training, and my mind hasn't come into it at all. I started it 2 weeks ago, and your encouragement of me to just do nothing and surrender, and really giving myself that time, and when ideas come, not writing them down, giving myself the space, but then actually after the deep let go, after the just full allowance and trust and letting myself do nothing, the richness of what comes through has been amazing. And I love what has just created itself in the retreat and in the landing page for that. That's just really feels like it's come from spirit, because I haven't felt like I'm doing it or writing it. It's just it's like all the writing has just come from the beingness. So I'd love you to just speak a little bit into that, of the doing that arises from the being. And, you're the first person I've ever met who can be packing a camper van, going on a big trip with 2 kids, traveling here, there, and everywhere, not actually having a plan, but getting us to the most amazing places and handling the 3 of us, but just still doing a lot with that sense of peace. Because again, I've heard people talk about that who don't actually have a lot of responsibility, and it's so different seeing like how full a day can be for you and how much you're getting done, and yet that presence remains, because the doing, as I perceive it, is arising from the being. So it's not stressed and it's not controlled. So do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just say that, like, that's what I've found, was that when you're connecting to just life itself and getting out of your mind and connecting to spirit, really, or energy, or whatever you want to call it, just the grand divine fucking force of life, it's a way more interesting game. It's like we all live in these fucking individual lives in our heads most of the time. I think most people are literally just in their head majority of their life,
Mhm.
not connected to the moment at all. Because I know because I've had a life dedicated to it, and it's still hard. I know that most people haven't even thought about it, and they're just running in these fucking loops and feeling so insular, and so like they have to do everything, and so much stress around like their obligation and responsibilities, and everything's just in this like one person, one mind capability, and that there's like this kind of just endless cycle of things to do, and then futures, and then regrets, and just like and everything's filtered through the mind. And I think largely when life is filtered through the mind, it doesn't have a lot of nourishment. So like people look to different experiences and different sort of things that can validate them and release some chemicals that in their mind that give them a good feeling. But when you're truly surrendered and open to life, and more subtle energies and that spirit flow into you, and actually not even flow in, it's actually just releasing your boundaries, because you are it all the time, you're connected to it. It's just we not try, it's just like there's a natural thing in society or something to insulate ourselves into like this singular thing, that we're never separate, but it's just releasing all the contraction and then opening us up to our true nature, which is this like infinite energy of life force and creation itself, that is so grand that it's just unbelievable. We're talking like the like billion galaxies that have a billion suns, and like black holes galore, and it's like all that's all part of who we are. And there's like this grand thing going on, that when we actually let go of our boundaries, we're tuning into that energy. It's not like I'm traveling in space, but like all the time or anything. But like it's just opening up to more life and to the grander picture, and out of our egocentric self and mind and all of that. I think that just allows for so much to come in. and that can be an amazing idea, amazing business idea that does create things for yourself, or like amazing offering, or just, oh, I feel like we're meant to go this way. It's like, where did that come from? I don't know. Like, my mind couldn't have worked it out. Thinking that you got to work everything out. And I see people planning their whole holiday, and then they're fucking, half the time they're not where they want to be, and they're like, oh, that was annoying. But then when you're really like guided by something greater than the mind in everything you're doing, there's just so much more richness, so much more life, and also so much more like authentic. Like, you're in the right place at the right time, and it allows more beauty. And like, so tuning into that more expanded state consistently, really drinking in, there's so much nourishment from that space that I've experienced, that there's also less desire for all these things and this stress to become something or have an identity or like become someone, an ego. And it's like, when you're really just being nourished by the simplicity of life, which is so complex as well, but it's like the real juice, is everything's just a lot simpler, and you can kind of just be a lot more peaceful and trusting, and knowing that part of one great energy that's moving and doing something, and that we're always going to be where we're meant to be if we can really listen and tune in and have a true interaction with life. And the mind is not the answer, and it is a tool that is great and helpful, but you can let go a lot of stress, a lot of tension, a lot of contraction by releasing the mind and coming more into the body, more into life, and more into the spirit, really.
Beautiful. And releasing all the planning and forecasting and driving towards something. I mean, something you've really taught me. I remember when we first started traveling together, and I'd be like, it's school holidays, we're traveling up north in the camper. Don't we need to book some places? And you're like, no, just trust. And I'm like, is this guy for fucking real? And it was the best holiday of my life. And after that holiday, every holiday was like that. And I trust you now. So I would invite the audience to, trust something more deeply than the plan. The other thing you've taught me is to not commit to unless you really have to, not to commit to things in the future, because you don't know how you're going to feel. And, I had so many obligations and commitments when we were together, and you questioning that and why I'm doing that. So question why you do what you do. Question anything that you feel obligated towards, and give yourself the freedom to, when someone asks you to do something or help them with something or go somewhere or whatever, to just say, I don't know. And, I'll feel into it closer to the time. That's just plugging the computer in.
Yeah, cultivating the listening is
for me.
Being able to listen to like something more than your mind, and then those
obligation, something more than obligation.
Yeah, and then it's like, but if you can truly tune in to something more than the mind, to a feeling, to like your being, then sometimes you're meant to take on that obligation too. Maybe you can make the plan, but it's coming from.
It doesn't feel like an obligation anymore, because it's
coming from truth, and it's coming from a deeper truth that's beyond the obligations, beyond the patterning, beyond the thoughts. It's like, no, that's just true. So I can say yes. But like, if you're not feeling that, if you're not clear, you're thinking, oh, I should really lock that in, or like, yeah, I probably should do that thing, and it's not really coming from an embodied yes, an embodied feeling of guidance, then
or an embodied no, or I don't know.
Totally. Yeah.
I've never met anyone who says, I remember when I was first with you and I'd say, hey, do you want to do this? And, you'd close your eyes and feel into it, and you're like, I don't know. And I'm like, what? Or, sometimes you're like a full yes and it's really clear, or a no without explanation. No, that doesn't feel right. And it's like, wow, we have this trajectory within us that is the navigation of our soul when we allow ourselves to breathe deeper into this moment and actually feel what's true. Whereas I had this kind of automatic yes. So I think presence really helps us to find our authentic yes. to find our authentic no, to find our authentic I don't know, and to actually be okay with that. So that's something that has completely changed my life, which I'm also inviting the audience into, is like, how would it feel to tune in deeper into this present moment and what's true for you, and only say yes to the things that you're a full body yes to, and to be okay with saying no to the things. And I don't know. I don't know is actually really empowering. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it takes courage as well, like to listen and be okay with that, because you
Disappointment
can't,
you need to.
because you can try to think it all through, and then so like if you've worked it out with your mind to be like, all right, I've worked it out, now I can say yes or no. But like a lot of the biggest decisions in my life, I haven't been able to work them out with the mind, and
Mhm.
I've had to trust and be really courageous, because it's just a feeling, and it's like
Mhm.
it's a feeling that I know is how I want to direct my life, even if it's so scary, so unknown. There's no safety. There's no like. I've been at a point where I've felt a clear yes in my being from my heart's passion and aliveness that could well have meant that I would never see my family or friends ever again. Like as far as
Mhm.
during COVID and different things, and it was like there was potential at that time. It felt like the reality was that decision could mean like really have massive consequences, and but it was like I knew inside that it felt right, and it had been so contrast to everything that I'd felt. But then just in a moment, it was like, this is the truth. I need to go to this place. I need and and to get on that plane, I had to really look at the consequences of potentially what I was doing, and that was never seeing anyone I knew again. Uh,
Mm.
and I had to be okay with that. I was like, it doesn't actually matter, because how I want to live my life, I don't want to live a life that's not from that place. Like this is my choice, my dedication to this life is to truly listen and to truly follow feelings that are alive in my being and in my heart. And that's the most important thing to me. That trumps everything. So
Mhm.
that was the most courageous moment of my life. That particular moment, in my eyes. Like, and I've flown off the edge of volcanoes and like done all sorts of crazy stuff, jumped off crazy things. Like I've done a lot of extreme sports, a lot of intense, courageous moments where I'm facing death. But that moment, to decide to follow my heart's passion and the true feeling in me, um, and potentially risk everything, that was the most courageous moment. I was like, this is the feeling, this is the truth. I have to,
Mhm.
and it worked out. It was just the most incredible thing that I've ever done, really, and it was so impactful in my life and my journey, and really was a big part of becoming who I am now. And
Mm.
um, yeah, big part of my journey. So having courage to listen, even if it's unknown, and literally like you can't work out life by the mind. Like you can't work out anything, because it's that idea of like bad things leading to good things. Like you would never choose that from the mind. But I hope
Mhm.
probably most people have experienced that, where like there's this kind of thing that and you can never know what's coming. There's just you can never really know. So
The
tuning in
dark
deeper.
night of the soul that births more light and expansion and opening.
Yeah, you would never choose that with the mind,
Mhm.
but like it's really important.
Yeah,
And your inner
yeah.
guidance, your heart's desire, your heart's pull, your the truth of your being, and how that's being reflected in life and external life too. Like that's going to take you to those places of real evolution, real growth, real
Mm.
transformation, real
Mhm.
beauty and connection with people and life. And so that's the kind of life I want to live. And it's
Mhm.
really, that's why I've just dedicated myself to that directional force, um, and really drinking in life and drinking in the moment.
Yeah, beautiful. And that courage is essential, and I can relate to that. Like leaving the comfort zone, leaving security, being courageous to follow a greater truth of the moment. And if I look back on all those courageous choices that have been the most monumentally, incredibly opening chapters of my life. So yeah, encouragement to everyone out there to have the courage to really follow your heart, to get out of your comfort zone, really, because the mind loves the comfort zone and the ego loves the comfort zone. So yeah, this has been an amazing conversation. I do want to ask you one more question before we finish, because I know that there's people listening who this is huge for, and it's being able to hold presence when you're listening to someone who is charged, is upset, and we've been on a journey with that. And I guess I was so used to you being fully present that when I would get upset and I wasn't receiving that full presence, I would demand it and be like, hey, like, I need you to just be there with me right now with my upset. And I need you to just acknowledge what's happening here instead of like going into the details of the mind, wanting that potency of your divine masculine in tricky spaces, and you always get there, and now you're getting straight there a lot quicker. So would you be able to share with the audience what you found to be key in being able to hold presence when there is a lot of Shakti moving through me, a lot of energy, a lot of emotion?
Mm. Well, it's not always easy. Definitely want to acknowledge that. Um, when it's interacting directly with your own wounding, your own sensitivities, like that's where then it's easy to get into emotion charge, and but it comes back to that trust, comes back to that sort of, it's like, this is happening, I'm here, choosing this experience. Like I could get caught in my own mind and my stories of what she's doing or what she's saying, but also it's all, that's not really the opportunity here. That's not the adventure. You could say I love like thinking of things in adventures, and or like challenges and or extreme like things. And some of the situations we've been have, I would call extreme, like with the extreme navigating a relationship, and it's like you got to just get into the freaking moment and like hold on for dear life. And I love it. I love that stuff. It makes it like it brings out more life, more presence, more power. Um, so a lot of it is getting out of your own stories and shit, because that's gonna throw you out. That's thrown me out for sure. Like when there's lots there that like all my childhood experiences and all ways I've moved in the world, and then that's directly met with something, and then it's like I'm triggered, I'm in reaction, I'm having my own upset, and I've played that out and recognize that it doesn't really get you anywhere. And it's not in the detail. It's like the mind wants, it's the same thing. This mind wants to come in and solve the situation and respond to all the things you've said and be like, well, actually, no, this is how I see it, and da 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 da. But it's like, if you come back to the body and presence, and like you feel that the other person is just expressing emotions, and there's just it's a volcano of whatever, or it's a tree waving, or the pouring rain, or whatever. It's like there's this expression of life happening in front of you, and can you just look at it as something to drink in and be present with, and really just show up for and meet. And usually that moment, if you're really in tune with it, is calling for somebody to be strong and to hold steady and to be solid in the storm. It's obviously not them. So that is probably the thing you're meant to do right now. And I come back to, it's like, okay, like, maybe I want these, my mind and certain triggers of wanting to be to go into the storm and all storm and we all just go crazy. But actually, the truth of this moment, when I'm out of that, is that I'm meant to really come into deep presence and just hold it and not even just not get into the details, not get into the mind. And
Mm-hmm.
the ultimate thing, and it requires a lot sometimes, and it's not an easy one sometimes, because it's like more than just interacting with the simplicity of like simple things in life and really taking it in and reacting. You're dealing with some of the most vulnerable places in your being that are going to cause as much of a instinctual response to react in a different way. But it all comes back to the listening to the truth of the moment and what it's truly calling for, and being courageous enough to put your shit aside in that moment. That's the courage. It's like, can I not
go die?
My point. Can I not actually respond to her and say, that's not true? Even if it's totally not true and it's offending me, I don't have to say anything. That's not what the moment's actually calling for. And so when we can tune in and actually listen and be courageous enough to do what you feel is the right thing, which is the presence and the holding. Someone needs to hold. There's somebody going through an emotional process that needs support, that needs love, needs presence. And that's the ultimate thing for me to do right now.
Test.
Yeah. So.
And what I notice with you is that the turning point is often with the breath. So if you are in your mind and I'm like, hey, I just need you to be here right now. You always close your eyes and breathe, and then I feel a difference in your energy fields. And then you come in and I can actually feel the difference, and then I can breathe and feel safer. And it's like, okay, he's no longer making it about him. And I feel like the breath is such an important piece here, because I can feel the difference in you with your deep breathing and that kind of meditative energy. And then it's like, that allows me to get out of any stories I'm running and actually just cry or be held by you or speak a truth that's deeper than any kind of shaming or blaming or talking about details, and just into, hey, I feel sad and this is what I'm needing, and you being able to just breathe that in. And I really feel the strength of your breath in those moments.
Yeah, and a new sort of thing that I'm trying to understand better, but that I've just gotten clear, that I think presence is totally connected with the nervous system. And I'm sure I'd love to understand that more. I just know that's true. And I don't know in what ways, but it's like the amount that we can be at ease in our system and nervous system is going to be totally connected to how much we can actually just be present in that moment and not in action.
The breath
is like everything to do with the nervous system.
And that can be for another deep dive in a live with you. I really enjoy that.
Nervous system and presence, they're just one and the same thing, I think. And it's a new sort of thought train that's been entering, and as I'm exploring different ways to look at it, presence, and also in my own being, like how I still lose presence and how I still how it's still hard to just be present sometimes, and just actually take in life. Like, it's really hard, and I don't think people are even aware of how out of the moment we most of us are. But it's like it's really hard to connect and actually be open. And I guess it's that openness, and how I've really been feeling it lately is this openness to allowing it in the moment into our being. So that makes sense as far as like our protection nervous system is like this kind of defense system, and it's like always like assessing and are we safe. And it's like if you're actually in a deep state of peace and receptivity, ease, you're going to be naturally open, and there's going to be a natural capacity to receive life in. And that's the key. And if you're closed and contracted, it's going to be really hard to take life in. And that's presence, taking it in, actually experiencing and opening yourself to life. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And what I'd like to add to that is that if we can see the inhalation as the receptivity and the really letting life in, and then the exhale as the releasing tension and contraction, as actually this way of life that is the contraction and expansion of anything we're laboring and birthing in the world. Lots of us can be very resistant to the contraction and then hold and have that armor you're talking about of like, oh, I need to feel safe. But actually with the breath, with the inhalation, the receiving, and the exhalation and the releasing, there is much more fluidity. So as we close, just if everyone can close their eyes and just allow a deep inhalation of this moment. And if the mind is talking, just not following any thoughts or resisting any thoughts, returning to the breath, deeply inhaling, opening, receiving, and then breathing out, relaxing, releasing, and just feeling into some of the anchors that we've been speaking into: courage, trust, surrender, flow, allowing the adventure with curiosity, attuning to yourself in each moment, owning your yes, owning your no, owning your I don't know, and allowing the life force and beauty and ecstasy and darkness of everything around you, from a beautiful mountain and blossoming flower to the crashing waves, the volcano, and the pleasure, the tears, everything. Can we bear witness to that? Can we breathe through that? And can we allow life to naturally unfold as the deep presence and listening to whatever life force is sparking is always informing us in our relationship to ourselves, our children, our loved ones, and everything? Can we trust? Can we trust this moment? So taking in a deep breath, bringing the shoulders up and back on the exhalation. Then, yeah, opening the eyes, celebrating this moment. And thank you. Thank you, my love, for sharing.
No worries. Nice to be here. Nice to share with everyone listening.
Yeah, and we'll bring you here more often, I think.
That's fun.
See you soon downstairs, love.
All right. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.